Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here, columnist Ryan Carchi. We moved it around a little bit. We're kind of up in the corner. We're sitting under the banners, and the reason we had to do that is otherwise things would be a little bit awkward. Verdell Jones is right now on the Assembly Hall floor taking jumpers. He's got noise-canceling headphones on, so he hopefully can't hear us.
We don't want to take the risk.
But yeah, it would feel real weird after he had a rough night.
Definitely his worst game of the season.
Yeah, 0 for 6, 3 turnovers, 0 for 2 from 3. Just looked bad. But I mean, it wasn't just him. Obviously, this was not a ringing night for the Hoosiers, more or less. They go down Minnesota 77, Indiana 74. It was a Minnesota team that came in 0-4 that had tried to sort of find an identity for itself in the first few games after losing Trevor Mbakwe, and really just didn't have a lot. There wasn't a lot of talent-wise. You looked at and say, "Wow, that's a guy that can beat you," and yet Minnesota did. I mean, Indiana had problems across the board. Defensively, just couldn't stop anybody. I mean, the numbers don't look horrendous. Minnesota only shot 46% from the field, which isn't god-awful. I mean, it's a little bit better, a little bit worse than average. But they were getting beat by guys that shouldn't beat you. More or less. I mean, Rodney Williams had his points, but I mean, Austin Hollins goes off for 18. They just couldn't really stop him. Guys like Chip Armelin got shots. Maverick and Ahan Misi, who I can't pronounce his name. Guys like that were beating them. They were getting to the paint, having a hard time. Just it was bad communication. Guys were being left open. All kinds of defensive problems, and that was really. We'll start there because there's a lot to talk about. We'll start there basically. I mean, just defensively, just what went wrong tonight and what happened to that team out there.
Defensively, there really wasn't much effort. I mean, it just looked like Indiana was deflated. I mean, guys would get in the lane and they had no problem. And the biggest problem, kind of in the second half, when Indiana actually looked like it had a chance to come back, it would have been a miraculous comeback, but it really looked like it had a chance. Just the offensive rebounds from Minnesota were killer.
They got killed on box outs. There was a lot of positions where they needed to box somebody out and they didn't. Minnesota just kept keeping shots alive.
I think it was 13 offensive rebounds in the second half. What was it? Was that something like that? It was a ridiculous number.
Yeah, 12. 12 offensive boards in the second half.
And probably 7 or 8 of those came in the last 7, 8 minutes. I mean,
yeah, and that's how they draw fouls and get to the line. There was a critical. There were just a few critical ones where they needed a stop and they pretty much had it, but then they gave up an offensive rebound and then a foul. Lots of those today. I mean, they were just getting. They were getting beat on the boards. The numbers don't really kind of tell the story with this one because Indiana actually wins the rebounding battle 35-33, and Indiana got their share obviously, but it was when they really needed a rebound, when they really needed to get a defensive rebound and get a stop. They couldn't get one. Minnesota found a way to keep it alive. Minnesota only has 13 second chance points. We got a hard time believing that. I don't know if it's just because they don't give them second chance points if they hit free throws. It just seemed like there was a lot more than that. So many of those occasions where they were just getting beat on the boards. We mentioned Verdell had a rough night. Guy who had it probably as rough, even if not more of a rough night, was Christian Watford. He was just bad on the glass. 3 rebounds. That was all. 1 for 7 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3.
Was just getting manhandled by guys like Rodney Williams who are smaller.
Than him.
He's a smaller guy than him, and it was kind of a reminder of where Christian Watford was before when he didn't have necessarily the intensity to compete on the boards like he started to in the second half of that NC State game when he really started showing some kind of drive as far as hitting the glass. And here he just kind of reverted back to that, and that was really killer. I mean, he was a guy who I don't think you saw.
He was starting to become more consistent.
He was, and this is definitely a step back, and more than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, it kind of just shows that they're just not out of the woods yet on that. I mean, it's basically it's always been the issue with Christian. When he has the motor going, he's one of the best players in the Big Ten, probably. Especially right now. I mean, definitely this year he's one of the best players in the Big Ten when he has that motor going. When he doesn't, you have nights like this. This one was worse. I mean, this one was the worst you've seen to date when he just didn't really have it together. And I don't know how much of that was whatever sort of injury he suffered in the first half. Tom Crean didn't want to really give it to that. He just said, hey, he needs to play better.
And someone had tweeted, actually, that he was sick earlier this week. We don't know how much of an effect that had.
But he just didn't. I mean, he didn't have just any bounce to him. I mean, when he got down low, he just really couldn't do much.
He looked slow.
Looked very, very sluggish. Just the entire, Shot wasn't there at all. I mean, he was a guy that took the three to try to tie it with 7 seconds to go. If he hits that, it's a tie ball game. He misses that one pretty bad. And just never had a flow. I mean, just everything you've seen from him, just the shooting, the ability to do something off the dribble, the rebounding, just everything that's been better the last couple weeks, just wasn't there today at all. Really, it was, I guess, just proof that they're not out of the woods yet. They're still going to have this battle with him over making sure that motor is running all the time.
Interestingly enough, they actually were in a 2-3 zone for
a lot. They had to go to the game. Zone. Yeah.
And the thing about the 2-3 zone is you leave shots open on the outside, but you usually use that to close up the lane and kind of cause some kind of keep that penetration down to a minimum, I guess. And it didn't look like that at all. I mean, you had Minnesota.
They actually hit less threes against it, I think, surprising, because that's usually what it beats you on. It was sort of an interesting strategical move, but to a degree it worked. Because what they were getting killed on was just kind of screens at the top of the key. They would go under the screens at the top of the key, just give guys looks. And guys like Chip Armon were hitting threes just on top of them. So they kind of switched up the look so they weren't getting caught up in the screen so much that they could kind of move around them and that sort of thing, just to make sure they were getting challenges on that. And they kind of were, but I mean, it did allow them to penetrate. Karina mentioned, I guess, that they had played zone against them before. Well, that was because Minnesota was huge. Last year, Minnesota was huge. When they had Sampson, when they had Colton Maverson, when they had Trevor Mbakwe, they had a lot of size. That was a team that had to play too big, really, because Rodney Williams had to play shooting guard for a stretch when Al Nolan was hurt and they had to go Blake Hoffarber at the point. They were basically playing a guard and 3 and 4 forwards. And Indiana, to deal with that, had to play some zone, just kind of force, Hoffarber to try to do something. They came out of that at times, but today they did it despite the fact that there wasn't a lot of a post presence. I mean, Ralph Sampson was 2 for 4 from the field. That's their only post guy. And Cody Zeller's got the edge.
He had 8 rebounds?
He did have 8 rebounds. He had 8 rebounds. And Zeller, I mean, still at the end of the day, Zeller still beats him. He has 23 points and 8 boards. As Crean pointed out, it's not a directly one-on-one thing there because he's dealing with multiple guys. But Ralph Sampson's not the guy that beats you. It's their guards who are very unheralded. They beat him tonight.
And not even just unheralded.
Barely
not
even
as talented.
No,
I mean,
that's
not
even
close. I mean, and the one thing I guess I wanted to talk about a little bit was that we're talking about a team that was the best 3-point shooting team in the country,
were horrible
and they played as if they were, except they weren't hitting the threes. I mean, when you're putting up that many threes, I mean, they were putting up threes that were contested. Christian Watford.
Watford did.
Christian Watford especially, but those threes just weren't falling, and when they aren't falling, there has to be some kind of fortitude to just put it in, take it in the lane, and give it to Cody Zeller. I mean, Cody Zeller had 24 points. I think that was what it was, 24?
23.
23. He probably should have had more. I mean,
probably. It's a tough deal because there's guys that, I mean, there are shots that they passed up. IDS kids are so mature. Just messing with you. Anyway, but I mean, they had shots that they hit, and they just had a hard time, I think, passing them up. I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you're Jordan Hulls and you get some of those looks, how are you not going to take that?
It's true. There's got to be.
No, you feel like you need to adjust, and maybe they did, but it's one of those nights when.
Or it's they're a team that hasn't had to. I mean,
right? No, it's true. It's a team that's been able to adjust in most cases, but. Minnesota was kind of giving them that, and they couldn't take advantage of it for a lot of the night. And I think that's what killed them. They were missing shots that they know they can hit, that they know they're capable of going up. And Minnesota defended well, just in general. I mean, I think Minnesota, you could definitely tell. Like Indiana said a lot about not having edge tonight, and Minnesota had edge.
I mean, it was a team
that was 0-4 in the league coming into this had edge.
It was a team, like Crean said earlier in the week, that was going to play like it had its hair on fire.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much exactly what we saw tonight. And
and I was kind of surprised to see it. I mean, I've seen Minnesota teams play soft in the past. I've seen, Ralph Sampson is definitely a guy that does not play like he's 6'11", but the rest of them, the guards tonight were just gritty, and there was more to that than you've seen. I mean, you've seen that last year was a very kind of schizophrenic Minnesota team, and this one didn't look that way. This one, even without, just a brute physical force like Trevor Mbakwe, still played just gritty, still got after 50-50 balls, still boxed out, still just defended everything. And it's a team obviously that wasn't playing very well, but it's another kind of one of those proofs that this is a good league from top to bottom. Some of these guys can rise up and beat you.
We've gone a whole 10 minutes and we haven't even talked about Will Sheehy, who came in first time, missed 5 games, came in at I think at the 11:32 mark. Only played 15 minutes, but when he was on the floor, I mean, he was
very good.
He was very good. He scored 12 points. I think he pulled down 6 or 7 rebounds.
6 rebounds, 5 for 7 from the field, 15 minutes of play. That's it.
6 rebounds, and him and Zeller were the only guys who, I mean,
for long stretches, they were the only guys they were getting anything
out of. They each only had 1 turnover. The starters combined for 11 turnovers to just 4 assists. 2 of those assists came from Cody Zeller in the post.
Yeah.
The
guards had a rough night.
Not the formula for a win.
Night. Yeah, but at least they got that going for them. But they got to go play Ohio State on Sunday after this one. So that's called having to recover really, really quick.
Yes.
So, thanks, guys.